All right, welcome back to another episode of This Old Truck. Today we're going to talk about how to treat rusted metal surfaces with epoxy primer. So our latest project has been to restore the bed of the truck. I don't know if I shared this previously, but one of our goals is to try and preserve the patina of the truck, give it an old look, keep that old look, but still get rid of the rust and allow it to not get any worse. We ground it away. We use this metal Flexivit paint stripper, rust stripper, to clean the metal up as best we could. It's ideal to take it to a blasting facility and have it media blasted, but we're trying to save money doing it in a more affordable way. The next step is to take grease and wax remover or thinner or something like that, and you wipe it on and with a drenched rag, and then wipe it off with a dry rag. So, and the whole wax on, wax off thing. Before it evaporates, you dry it off. All right, here we have our epoxy. This is a European brand of paint here, so I won't go into detail on that. So we've got the epoxy, thinning it 4:1 with the hardener, and then have the thinner, the reducer. So, and then I've got my paint mixing cup, and then my HVLP gun. One of the things I'd like to point out is I don't have any really high dollar, I don't have a high dollar setup. This is an old dairy barn I'm working in. This is a cheapy Amazon primer gun, and you can get by. I give credit to my grandpa who taught me how to paint in his barn on a dirt floor. And he taught me a few tricks to keep the dust down, and that's what gave me the love for learning how to paint and work on cars. But the first thing you want to do is find out what your ratio is. As I mentioned, this is 4:1, and I've got 4:1 marked on this cup, and pour it in. I'm going to go to level, hit the 3 on the marker on the side. So there's a mark down there that said I filled that up to 3, and then there's another 3 right next to it that is the level to bring the hardener to. There it is. And I like to mix the hardener with the epoxy before thinning it. You can see that's a little too thick, just the way it runs off my stir stick. So going back to the trying to clear away the area so I can see how much reducer to add. I should be wearing a mask now, but kind of hard to talk with a mask on. These fumes are hard on you.
Can you use the brush cleaner thinner for that? How do you know what stuff to use?
Oh, okay, yeah, there are different ones. This is acrylic thinner. This is like a lacquer thinner. So I use this to clean the gun, but this isn't the right stuff to thin the paint. So in Europe they have different names for them than they do in the States, so I'm not going to confuse you. Ask your paint jobber to tell you which thinners go with which paints, or check on the internet. The setup on the gun is I open this all the way up. So when you pull this back, this is how much fluid gets in. I have that opened all the way up. And then for this paint, I'm going to have this opened all the way up too. And then I'll check the spray pattern with those open all the way up, and then I can adjust it from there. When I started painting, we were using lacquer primer, and it was great for the time, but there was a lot of shortcomings of it. One of the things that was difficult with lacquer primer is you had to sandblast and get any trace of rust out of the metal before you could paint, because any trace of that rust would just come back and start bubbling the paint in no time at all, and to come back and bite a nice paint job. So now with epoxy, you still need to break the rust down, get rid of as much of it as possible, but it really seals the moisture out and keeps the rust at a minimum. Okay, hope you enjoyed watching us do the epoxy primer. We hung this fender on here just to see how it would look, to see how much of the epoxy showed through. We're still not sure how we're gonna show the patina off with the epoxy, how we're gonna cover that, but we'll work through that as we go. Lacquer is similar to my life when I was younger. I felt like when I was growing up, I had to live a perfect life. I had to get rid of any trace of sin in my life, or it would just come back and mess up my relationship with God. And I came to realize that that's not the case. That when I make a mistake, when I mess up, the blood of Jesus covers that sin. And instead of my focus being on trying to live a perfect, sinless life, my focus now is trying to love God and glorify Him and spend time with Him, and realizing that I'm protected by the blood of Christ, and that is going to help me live a more sinless life, is focusing on loving God instead of focusing on the sin and how to get rid of that. So that's similar to the difference between lacquer primer and epoxy primer. Is this is way more forgiving. Epoxy primer, it doesn't have to be perfect to look good. And I'm so thankful that God has provided a relationship, a way for me to be in relationship with Him in spite of my imperfections. So, hope you enjoyed this episode of This Old Truck. We're making progress. We have most all the rust filled and now primed, and excited with how things are coming together. Still have a little more welding on the front edge of this and inside the bed, and then we'll finish off the last bit of priming before we move on and add the wood. So thanks for watching, and hope you stay tuned for more.